Super Rugby AU Dream Team, the final one of these we'll be doing. It's round 10. And yeah, they're the two games. The Force, close loss. Pretty heartbreaking one for the Force. And then the Reds' big win over the Brumbies. Ain't many Brumbies in this lineup. I did manage to get one. And yeah, I got a couple of Force guys as well. But largely made up of Reds, you would have to say. But let's start with one of the Rebels guys, Elof the prop. I'm only putting him in here for one reason, to be fair. He scored that try, which, I mean, we often give props a bit of grief for not being the smartest fellows on the pitch, but unfairly, because it's his reaction that got the Rebels through to the finals, because basically the Rebels thought they'd scored a try and everyone stopped playing. What did he do? Picked up the ball and went over for a try. So it's his quick reactions and keeping on playing to the ref's whistle that got the Rebels through. So it's not one of those ones where I've picked it based on the whole match. It's basically a quick moment of thinking. He also managed 3 runs, 4 meters and a turnover at the time that he was on the pitch, along with not only the game-winning try, but the try that got them through to the knockout stages of the competition. So if you can have much more impact in a few minutes, good luck. But that was a pretty good effort from him. A guy who tends to play a lot of minutes, but not as many as usual this time, from Taniela Tupou. He only played, I think, 50 odd before he got subbed. Usually he goes like 70, but he still had 29 runs, 3 passes. 29 run meters from 2 runs, so very effective in terms of his meterage. Got 2 turnovers. Didn't concede a penalty, which for him is almost like a miracle. He's at least a 2 penalty a game guy every week. Not this time. Maybe that's because he didn't play as many minutes, but there you go. Good effort from him. 4 out of 6 tackles. Not the best numbers, but I think overall pretty good. And Dave Rennie will be looking at him with interest. Is he a starter? Is he an impact player? Well, he can still prove that he can go 80 minutes or 70 anyway, so yeah, we'll see. Hooker, previously known as my least favorite player essentially in the world. Like, I'm not usually one to hold a grudge against players, but I still remember Andrew Reedy playing for the Reds years ago. Their scrum was absolutely dominating the Blues. This guy rubbing the heads of the Blues props and whatnot every time they would win a scrum penalty on a really greasy track, and there was just scrums galore, and every time smarmy grin on his face. I couldn't stand this guy, but he is growing on me since he's been at the Force. He's still got a little bit of that smarminess about him, but man, what can I say with this performance? He had 2 tries, 4 runs, 4 meters, made 7 from 7 tackles. The line out was at 100%. He managed 2 turnovers, so he was just doing a bit of everything. What can I say? He had a pretty good shift. I don't mind it so much when he's doing it to another team, but when he was doing particularly well against my Blues all those years ago, I was not a happy chappy. Anyway, next locks. I've gone with Blythe from the Reds. 2 runs for 4 meters. It's not exactly phenomenal numbers. 5 passes, but 13 out of 15 tackles. 13 out of 15 tackles. Had a few line-out wins with 3, and had 2 turnovers, 1 as well. I seem to remember him being initially snubbed from the players of national interest. That will be an interesting one to follow. We're still waiting to see if there's going to be a Wallaby squad named. I haven't seen. If any of you guys know when that's due, do let me know. The All Blacks have named their squad before they've got any fixtures on the calendar, so that's an interesting one. Next one, I've gone with Hosea from the Rebels. Didn't do much ball in hand. He had like 3 passes but no runs, so he may need to do a bit of that whole what Patrick Tuipulotu had to learn when he was at the Blues, essentially, is just that you're a big fella. You can be confident that if you run the ball into contact, you will likely get good results. So, yeah, not his night for the runs, but he had 11 tackles and a line-out win. So, essentially, very solid in keeping the Rebels in the game. Maybe not as good as Blythe. I think it's kind of a clear first, second this week. But yeah, he was all right. I couldn't bring myself to pick some of the Brumbies guys, even though they had more defensive stats. Loose forwards, I've gone with Wright from the Reds, and man, is he in good form. But I keep praising the Aussie loosies because there is literally just so many of them. I mean, I looked at the All Blacks lineup as well. We got tons of loosies as well. It seems to be, I don't know if it's an easy position. It's just because a lot of guys have the right build for it or what, but there's a lot of good loosies around at the moment, and Liam Wright is one of them. He had a try. 3 runs for 19 metres is a pretty good return. He had 4 passes, 17 out of 17 tackles. But what's even more pleasing if you like Dave Rennie, he gets 2 turnovers, which is kind of one of his main jobs, and didn't concede a single penalty. So, very, very pleasing. Here is the Brumby. I managed to pick Pete Samu. The Brumbies were pretty flat. I think Wright racked up a bunch of run meters, but was defensively a bit suspect, so I couldn't bring myself to pick him either. Nick White had a couple of good tackles and whatnot, but yeah, Pete Samu scored their only try. He had 30 run meters from 2 runs, which would have been largely made up by that try. 4 passes, beat 2 defenders, 8 from 9 tackles. Just generally one of the only guys to really show up in that performance, I thought. And the last one, I've gone from the Force, Bryn Stander. He put in another good shift. He got a try. So along with Reedy, he was one of their try scorers. 6 runs, 6 meters. Seems to be a thing about the Force guys, because Reedy was 4 runs, 4 meters. So 1 run equals 1 meter. 9 passes and a clean break. So he was involved pretty heavily in what they were doing with ball in hand. 10 out of 11 tackles, and also managed a turnover. In the end, it wasn't enough for the Force, but yeah, it was still one hell of a game. A proper nail biter, that one. Into the backs, I go on with Tate McDermott. People in my live stream often call him Haircut because of his haircut, but there's no denying his skills as a player. He had a try and 35 run meters. He had 2 clean breaks, a bunch of passes. He had 7 from 9 tackles and a turnover, and he can play on the wing, or he can play 9. The guy has to be a Wallaby, bench Wallaby. I don't know. What do you guys reckon? There's been a few 9s historically who've been able to sit out there on the wing as well. Francois Hukart's kind of one of them for the Springboks, but yeah, he's definitely very versatile. I don't know if you chuck him in directly into 9, but he's got to be there or thereabouts. Matt Tamua, I've been going on about how I like him in the midfield, but he ran the show well enough at 10 for the Rebels. However, I think mainly his goal kicking, which he could have done from any number on his back, his goal kicking, he had it on a string. Every strike was just a peach of a thing to watch, and it was just straight over the black dot. It was absolutely glorious. You never thought he was going to miss. 7 out of 8 tackles. He had 14 points overall. Kind of like Elof was one of the guys who actually managed to get the team through. He had the winning kick as well. So, yeah, proper effort from him. Another guy from the Force, Agama Tafu. He had a try. Man, have I picked all Force try scorers? He hit the ball well. I think Godwin probably had a better game overall ball in hand, but a couple of bad defensive reads from Kyle. Overall, though, I think he's had a pretty good season. But Tafu had 4 from 5 tackles, 2 defenders beaten, a clean break, 34 run meters. He hit that ball really at pace, which is what you need to do for that try. So, yeah, proper effort from him. And another guy from the Reds, Agama Pitaya. Good to see him having a seemingly decent run without injury. He did come off before the 80 minutes, but that's all right. Don't have to play him 80 minutes every week. He's still a very young man. 54 run meters from 8 runs, had 3 defenders beaten and an offload, 2 passes, 3 from 3 tackles. Interestingly, he kind of did all the work ball in hand, and then Stewart did all the work defensively. Stewart had 14 tackles, but bugger all with ball in hand, whereas Pitaya is kind of the opposite. So maybe that's kind of an interesting duo. I've also got Filippo Dalgunu from the Reds. He just looks like absolute lightning when he's got the ball in hand. Very dangerous. Didn't have any tries or try assists, but he did have 14 runs for 113 run meters. He had 2 clean breaks and 5 defenders beaten. A proper little goose step. Yeah, he is just kind of danger personified recently. Likewise, Jock Campbell, I thought, had a pretty assured game at fullback for the Reds. He did have a couple of try assists. He looked very confident. 44 run meters, 4 defenders beaten, 3 clean breaks. Just absolutely electric. 4 from 5 tackles. I'm not sure if it's because it's Super Rugby AU that's got me quite kind of pumped up for the Wallabies' future prospects, or if it's the fact that a lot of these guys are quite young. Tupou's young for a prop. Hosea's very young. I don't think Blythe's much more than early 20s. Liam Wright's pretty young. Samu's probably in his late 20s, right? McDermott's very young. Pitaya, Campbell. I don't know how old Dalgunu is, but there's a lot of guys like under 25. It's got to be looking good for Aussie rugby, doesn't it? I don't know. Am I dreaming? And the last one, Dane Hallett-Peter, he's definitely not under 25, but I thought pretty assured return to the jersey for him. I know that's two fullbacks, but that's the way we go. Very sharp on return. 94 run meters, 3 defenders beaten, a clean break. Won 3 turnovers, had like 3 tackles. Scored that key try when they had the yellow card. So, yeah, that's it for Super Rugby AU's Dream Teams, because this week's just the one game. Rebels against the Reds. The Dream Team will basically be whichever team wins that one, and then the final the next week. So yeah, we'll see how things go. Pretty pumped for those final 2 games of Super Rugby AU. The fact that the Brumbies were so flat is it just makes the final game a bit more interesting. And yeah, the Rebels just scraping through after the Reds put the Brumbies to the sword will probably make the Reds big time favourites, but you never know. In one-off games, anything can happen. You guys let me know your thoughts. Like I said earlier when I was doing the match reviews, there was so much rugby on at the weekend. I was a bit bleary-eyed for at least that Reds game, but based on gut feel and some of the numbers, here are my picks. And yeah, you guys let me know yours. I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.